Texas medical professional Stella Immanuel has emerged as one of the key critics of the established narrative about the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. The established narrative that she is criticizing is the idea that right now there is no cure and that social distancing and things of that sort are the default best mode for ensuring survival during this plague and things of that sort. Well, Immanuel and people like her have a different view. Stella Immanuel happens to believe that there certainly is a cure. The idea of a hydroxychloroquine, which is a drug the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has postulated in several of his conferences and several of his tweets, and have been really trying to sound the alarm off. Of course, folks like Diamond and Silk and other conservative media personalities have also came to Stella Immanuel's defense and have lauded her for her expertise about these matters. Now, as someone who is right-leaning himself and someone who aspires to work in conservative media, I understand a video like this is very risky for me because there are certain standards and certain established sacred cows within any media space, left-wing media, conservative media, that could exclude you from the fray. However, I'm going to try to make a case to all of you, including my future employers, that the right and conservatives in general, and libertarians like myself, cannot allow our inherent contrarian nature to overtake our faculty of reason and overtake our ability to see things objectively, clearly, and sanely. But by endorsing folks like Stella Immanuel, we are doing just that. We are subordinating ourselves to the ground floor. We are not thinking in a sort of higher order manner, but we are instead running like a drug addict to any sort of nectar, any sort of medicine, any sort of sustenance that can feed our innate skepticism about how the system and the experts have told us the coronavirus story. Indeed, we should be absolutely skeptical of a lot of the things the quote-unquote experts have postulated. For example, a few months before the coronavirus really came in, the CDC constantly said N95 respirators were not effective and we cannot have them in mass production, which led to a lot of people not getting them and a lot of people dying earlier. Then they changed the narrative and said, oh no, N95 respirators are actually very, very important and they're indispensable, which if we had known that a few months earlier, most people wouldn't have died. So we have to understand, contrarianism for the sake of finding the truth is not bad. But conspiracism in the pursuit of not a truth, but a narrative is baleful. It is deadly. And that is what Stella Immanuel is a progenitor of. She is an emissary, a sort of preacher of conspiracism and falsehoods. She does not embody that ancient Emersonian adage to test goodness to see if it be goodness. No. She embodies that ancient deceptive maxim that indeed, if I don't perceive this to be some way, and if I have a certain narrative of what I think this is, that is what it is. That is the idea of relativism, subjectivism, which has bound the West and has bound modern day society to the block of mediocrity, to the anvil of mediocrity. And right now, we're going to break that. We're going to explore that. We're going to see why exactly folks like Stella Immanuel are this dangerous. Miss Immanuel, Dr. Immanuel, I will pay respect to her while I'm criticizing her. Dr. Immanuel, even though she is certified in Texas as a physician, says things that a physician or any other scientist, because really physicians are scientists, wouldn't be caught dead saying and wouldn't have passed their exams if they had put this stuff on their exams, because it just makes no sense whatsoever. It's absolutely false. For example, in a sermon in 2013, Stella Immanuel had this to say about pop culture, Michael Jackson, Lady Gaga, and everyone else.
So a lot of these musicians have Nephilims in them, and these days they don't hide it. Beyonce says she has Sasha Fierce. You hear Lady Gaga, I'm not even sure she's human. Her own is a dude. They are telling you straight up. They call it their alter ego. Beyonce told us that when she's singing and dancing and shaking her bum, it's not her, it's Sasha Fierce.
Now, the entire premise of that sermon is that there is a mass conspiracy of the Nephilim. For those of you who don't know what that is, Nephilim were giants or demons that existed before the flood, if you're a Christian, before the flood, before God cleansed the earth in Christian theology, and were interbreeding with human beings of that time. She still postulates that Nephilim are alive and well, walking around the earth, causing people to have common medical ills, cysts, bloating. She even says if you have a bloating in your belly, you are attached to a spirit husband, which is sort of a succubus or an incubus. Succubus and incubus are demons who, in mythos, invade your mind and impregnate you with their seed, and you act as a vessel for their child. This is such crazy stuff. As a Christian myself, I believe in the spiritual world. I believe demons do not exist, but I don't believe they are causing what we understand by science. They're not causing cysts. They're not causing you to get bloated. Maybe that Taco Bell you ate last night is causing you to get bloated, but they are not. But
she had been fantasizing about one of the movie stars. When she came to deliverance ground, during prayer, she started screaming. Her stomach was full, was pregnant. She started screaming. She was tearing off her clothes. She was screaming and screaming like she was in labor. And she said, this thing came out of me. Her stomach deflated. Right here. Real life.
And she also had to say that Michael Jackson's Thriller was a vehicle, listen to me, a vehicle for incubus and succubus propensities. So she was basically saying that us dancing the Thriller causes incubus and succubus to implant themselves in our body and shoot their seed into the world and manifest malevolence.
Michael Jackson, all of us danced to Thriller. Thriller was a typical incubus-succubus encounter, and we all danced to it. Do you know the things we got from it? If you listen to the devil entertaining you, he will possess you. And a lot of church people that have burned strange fire, a lot of people...
Be honest, okay? And I didn't script this because this is something that needs to be talked about without preparations. Because if you are just polished about this, you obviously don't care about this. You care about providing a certain point. Here's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Her medical credentials stand independent of her religious or spiritual beliefs. I agree. Unless both of those are intertwined. This lady has postulated things that we understand to be true medically and scientifically, having a alternative cause, and being able to solve those things through spiritual remedies. Being able to solve those things through non-medical remedies. No matter what your faith is, no matter what you believe, we must understand that humanity has itself cultivated and procured the tools to extend our lifespans, to fight nature, to fight the infectious diseases of the world, and to ensure that all of us can continue to persist on this globe for time to come. In fact, if you are a Christian, you should especially appreciate that point, because guess what? You should believe that, if you're a Christian, that God's genius implanted into human genius, because we are like Christ apparently, it allowed us to procure these things so that we could better tend to the earth and better tend to ourselves, the vessels of God. If you are a Christian. If you're not a Christian, this sounds like a bunch of crazy talk to you, which a lot of it probably is. I'm sorry, but having a skepticism towards pop culture is fine, but thinking but trying to exercise that skepticism primarily through denigrating pop culture figures by calling them demon emissaries is nonsense. And for you to be the chieftain of contrarianism in an era in which this pandemic response has been so baleful and destructive towards individual rights is nothing short of disgraceful, my people. COVID-19 has not been responded to accurately. It has not been responded to propitiously. Just today, the NPR reported 32.9%. The GDP is down 32.9%. You know what that means? That is worse than 1958. That is worse than literally any other period of economic depression in American history. Our GDP is down 32.9%. People are riveting and just wailing with boils of pretension, boils of hurt inflicted upon them by government action, because the government sanctimoniously decided that its duty was to protect all of us by prematurely shutting everything down and robbing many people, including myself, of a paycheck that they needed for sustenance. These are legitimate issues. The idea that face masks themselves are not all that helpful compared to N95 respirators. These are legitimate issues. The fact that coronavirus has been used as a political football to try to destroy any other contrarian, that is a common and a valued viewpoint. These are things that need to be discussed, but I'm sorry. When we get into territory of demons and aliens and astrally projecting witches causing you to have cysts and pregnancies, we endeavor in lunacy. And lunacy will not help those of us who want to have better pandemic preparedness, better pandemic responses that are an aid to liberty and individualism. It doesn't help us. Listen, William F. Buckley once said that it is incumbent upon us on the right to excise the loonies and the kooks from our ranks and continue to have those who postulate a consistent message. That consistent message must be negative rights, backed up by minimum government, backed up by an adherence to that special divine sustenance of individual rights, backed up by an adherence to the foundation of natural rights, backed up by every single thing that this country is founded upon and that human greatness itself is composed upon. The constitution of our human greatness. That is what we must do on the right, guys. That is what conservatives and libertarians must aspire for, not embracing kooks who would rather use their faith, pervert their faith, and use it as a bludgeon against those who disagree with their narrative. That is not seeking the truth. That is seeking a pre-established conception, which is the exact opposite of the truth. Christ said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God." Well, the kingdom of God, as Emerson said, shall not be manifest by cowards. And if you are listening to this lady, and you are eating everything she says up, and you're not thinking about it critically, you are engaging in cowardice. That's all for now, guys. Until next time, stay pensive.